Hi, everybody. Welcome back to English 247. This is for our class for Thursday, the 13th, where we are moving past Jane Eyre and moving towards Emily Dickinson. I am in the midst of evaluating your paper number 1. So if you haven't received it back yet from me, you should be receiving it soon. And of course, all of you have the option of rewriting that paper for a higher grade if you so elect to do so. I just ask that you submit in the original with my commentary along with your revision, and you do so by the ending of the semester. So you've got a little bit of time in which to do that. And there is a paper number 2. And the paper number 2 is very similar to paper number 1. So the idea behind paper number 2 is that you would incorporate all of the suggestions that I made in your first paper into your second paper. So this is how paper number 1 and my comments will be important, whether you decide to rewrite paper number 1 or not. And my thinking is that paper number 2 would deal with one of the later texts in the semester. And what that probably means is Jane Eyre, or Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl, or The Awakening. And yes, Emily Dickinson is a possibility, but writing about poetry is a different kind of animal, so you should know that. What I wanted to do in terms of Emily Dickinson today was to basically give you a bit of a background of her biography. Now, she wrote quite a few poems, as you will find out, and obviously we can't read them all. So what I did was I offered you a link from the Poetry Foundation, which is a great place to find some of Emily Dickinson's poems. I also had ordered as a recommended text for our class, Emily Dickinson's work of poetry. You want to make sure if you're reading Emily Dickinson, though, you're reading the correct Emily Dickinson, as you will soon learn. Editors initially changed her poetry by standardizing it, and there's an easy way to tell if you're reading the original Emily Dickinson or what was changed over by the editors, because what Emily Dickinson originally wrote were poems that basically violated the rules of punctuation by using dashes oftentimes at the ending of lines and irregular capitalization. So that's what you should be looking for, because as you will find out in the documentary that I'm going to ask you to watch, it gives a completely different meaning when you are seeing Emily Dickinson's thoughts in the way she expressed them rather than the way that editors might have presented them initially after her death. So the documentary that I wanted you to watch is called Voices and Visions, and it is a bit dated. It is from 1987, but one of the things that I really like about this documentary is that they quote a lot of Emily Dickinson poetry, so you're going to get a nice overview of some of her poetry. It's 56 minutes long, and you can see in the Moodle notes below, I've got the link for you to access that. And what I'm going to ask you to do is, after you've seen that documentary, is to find an Emily Dickinson poem. Now, she wrote over 1,000, so obviously you're not going to read everything. Find a poem or even a line in a piece of poetry that you find to be particularly powerful and explain why. And I'll be sharing a poem with you next week and talking about why I selected that poem, why I find it to be powerful. But it doesn't even have to be a poem in its entirety. One of the things you'll learn about Emily Dickinson is that she is rather complex, and that even the scholars aren't necessarily always sure of her meaning. So sometimes, rather than trying to understand an entire poem, what I recommend is that you just try to understand a line. So one of my favorite lines is, "One need not be a chamber to be haunted. One need not be a chamber to be haunted," which I think says so much about haunting and the psychology associated with haunting. So I like that line so much that I even offer it as a paper topic in my Gothic literature class. But at any rate, I'm well aware that the documentary is 56 minutes long. And then after that, I'd just like you to browse through some of Emily Dickinson's poetry, whether you do it on a website or you do it in a paper version. Just make sure that you're looking at the poems that Emily Dickinson wrote, the ones that would have the dashes and the irregular capitalization, and not the poems that editors would have published after the fact. Find a poem or a line that you find particularly powerful and indicate why in our discussion forum. That'll be due Saturday, the 15th. And certainly, if you need additional time, let me know. I know I've fallen a little bit behind with the discussion forum responses, my responding to your responses, but I will catch up with that and with your papers as well. I am in the midst of evaluating those. So I hope you are doing well. I'm doing well. Next class, we will talk about Emily Dickinson, and we will continue forward by introducing incidents in the life of a slave girl. Take care. Bye bye.